colony in Port Moody. I got it. And they'll give an update. So I'll have one photo to share. So I'll have to do a screen share, and then Jim and Judy can take it away.
Okay, we're all set to go. So we'll just wait for you to do
The screen share, sure.
the screen share, and then we'll.
I'm not sure what I'm going to be sharing, but there we go. Good. It's the right one.
Oh, there we go. All righty. So we thought we'd continue our initial talk about the great blue herons by providing the outcomes for the 2022 season. In June, things were looking really good, and we were speculating that we would have a higher number of fledges than even the previous year when we had 33 birds fledge. That number was the highest number we had recorded for this colony. But on July 6th, things quickly changed when the juvenile bald eagle returned to predate the colony. The same bald eagle had predated the colony earlier in the season, but where the nests had been predated, those heron parents laid another clutch of eggs. On July 6th, we had then a combination of both younger and older chicks in the nest. The eagle predated the younger chicks from July 6th to the 10th at all hours of the day, and we were there for hours watching this. The outcome of the season was still positive with 24 fledges, and that's a good outcome for this size of colony. We did have some interesting observations during the eagle attacks. When the eagle would land in the colony, the birds in the colony began loudly vocalizing, and the adults that were out foraging in the inlet would quickly fly back to the nests. Keep in mind that the herons only weigh 5 pounds, and an eagle can weigh between 10 and 17 pounds. So defensive strategies are limited for the herons. However, if 2 adult herons remained in the nest with the juveniles, the eagle was not successful. And we observed that over and over during that 4-day period. If only 1 adult heron remained in the nest, the chances for predation increased. 1 juvenile heron who survived a fall out of the nest during an eagle attack managed to climb up a small holly tree, but was unable to return to the nest, and herons do not ground feed when their young fall from a nest. Because rescuing a bird out of a tree requires certain expertise and equipment, we contacted Wildlife Rescue. Initially, the advice was to continue monitoring, but as this is a species of special concern and the bird's health was deteriorating by day 3, Wildlife Rescue sent out their technical rescue team and were able to set up a net and gently shake the tree, and the bird fell into the net. After being assessed at the rescue facility, we received the following email from Wildlife Rescue. And this is an interesting email, and it shows the type of work and care that they provide for rescued birds. It said, the heron was thin, dehydrated, and quieter than usual when admitted. Its blood tests indicated that it was fighting infection. It was rehydrated, given pain management and antibiotics. Following an original improvement in condition and temperament, its condition ultimately worsened at the beginning of August when some developmental abnormalities surfaced. Following radiographs to determine the extent of the issue, the difficult decision was to euthanize the bird was ultimately made, as it was clear this bird would not survive to be released into the wild. This was a very difficult outcome after the incredibly challenging and collaborative rescue effort that was made to bring this bird into care. The eagle did not return after July 10th because the remaining fledglings were too large and had parents who did their best to defend these nests. By August 4th, all the birds had fledged, And now we look forward to the start of a new season next February. And does anyone have any questions or comments for us?
I'm not sure if you exactly said how many nests there were this year.
21.
Victoria Otten here. I'd say you deserve a round of applause if
Yes.
we're all
yes.
muted.
Oh,
Not just witnessing all those horrific attacks, but just observing this colony for what? How many years now is it, Jim?
since 2015.
7, yeah, 2015 we started, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Wonderful work that you
They're
do.
very interesting bird, very interesting bird.
Yeah, that's
Just to
fantastic.
watch how they interact with each other, especially the pair and just the things that they do. And yeah, it was tough watching this eagle, but that's nature for you. There's not much
Yeah,
to do about it, but it sure bothers you to see him ripping it apart. And then in the early part when he was getting into the eggs, and you know, it was that was really hard too. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, heartbreaking.
yeah.
Mhm.
I'm going to stop screen sharing here. And
We do look forward to February though.
Yeah.
It'll be-
well, that means winter's almost over at that point.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Dave Montagne, are you ready to go?
There's a
I'm ready to
question
go.
Oh, it's a question.
in the chat, Ian.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you know what, Edie, we
Well-
talked, this past season, Judy and I were talking one day, and we talked to thousands of people along the trail, and everybody that stopped, and we'd have groups of people there, and what kind of birds are those? And they want to know, and all this, and it was really really interesting to talk to people, and people from all over the place that would stop and see us and that kind of thing. So we were there like during the summer probably, or the birds were getting a fledge. We were there 2 or 3 times a day. So it was
Wow.
nice. It was nice to run into people.
It was nice for people to run into you guys and hear all about the I think 2 different times with different people I ran into you, and
Yeah,
you told them all about the herons and they were fascinated.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're a fascinating bird. Yeah, it's quite something.
Great. Well, that wasn't me. Okay. So David, if we, you're a co-host, I assume, so you can.
Yes, I'm going to screen share now.
And has Myrna got the key card or the cue cards?
No,
Okay. We can see your screen.
I can see your screen. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about Japanese knotweed at DeBoville Slough, and a bit of the history. The first slide is Kara Self. She's talking about the knotweed, and this used to be from the entrance to about 200 feet past the kiosk on the south side, and it used to be 8 feet tall, and it used to be from the water's edge to the top of the bank, and you can tell just by looking at this picture how invasive it is. And we used to work with Westfield, and we used to fill an 8-foot-high dumpster, but we had to go to a 12-foot-high disposal bin because we had a lot of, it was too much for the 8-foot-high. And Westfield used to supply a front-end loader and 2 or 3 people, and it was quite a bit. And then we about 3 years later, we started working with the city of Coquitlam. The Westfield dropped out of the scene, and Westfield, the city of Coquitlam, they supply a truck and a worker. The city of Coquitlam also disposes the knotweed. And between the city of Coquitlam and the Friends of DeBoville Slough, we supply any tools needed. But if you have a favorite lopper or pruner, feel free to bring along. And there's Ian and Michelle passing up some knotweed from a site that we worked on. And we quite often have to deal with blackberry vines, and we show no mercy to the blackberry vines. Anything, cut them out of the way to get at the knotweed. And these are some of the volunteers that came out. And if you notice, there's a lot of people that are BMN members. And so we'd like to invite all those people to come out again. And the next knotweed work party is Saturday, October 1st from 9 a.m. to noon. And if you, we meet at the kiosk on the north side, and wear a sturdy footwear as we work on the side of dikes, and bring water and sunscreen if it's hot and sunny. I don't know what the weather will be like, but we go rain or shine. So it has to be pretty torrential to stop us from going. And that's it.
Great, Dave. I was just thinking, Dave, maybe you could explain this, from DeBoville Slough, or Friends of DeBoville Slough Society becoming a committee of BMN.
Well, we became a committee last year. It was a small group, and the insurance costs became so great that we couldn't cover it for a small group. Now we have a lot of volunteers, but and because most of the volunteers were BMN members, we decided that yes, when BMN offered, we would decided to become a committee of BMN, and we would continue on with much the same work, and we would do the same things as we usually do: the nest boxes, the walks. We've done plantings in the past, and so that's why we became a member.
Great. Anybody have some questions?
Yeah, I do. So I understand this has been quite successful, and you're mainly doing manual. So you've never worked. Is this correct? You've never worked with chemical, right?
We've not worked with chemicals, but this year the city of Coquitlam, or Port Coquitlam, which manages the South Dike, accidentally sprayed some of the knotweed. They said it was because they changed over something on their computer, and they lost the history, and when the contractor was contacted, they sprayed it. So, but that was early on, and so I think it would be safe now. And there was lots of areas that they missed. And as you can tell, with the COVID, the last 2 or 3 years have been intermittent with knotweed control. We can't let it go because it comes back, and we don't want to get into the situation where we were at the beginning in 2005. We're one of the few people that, a few groups that organize manual cutting. It's not for the faint of heart, and we don't know if we would have got into it if we'd known about it at the beginning. But we are involved, and that's the way it goes.
Great. Any other questions?
How many times a year do you go out and cut it?
Well, normally we try for 4. We're happy if we get 3. May, June, July, and the last one, which is most important, is either late September or early October. And it's important in that the leaves are putting their energy into the rhizome. And we find that this gives the most bang for the buck to cut it in October. We've had one cancellation this summer due to working on the dike. The city of Coquitlam was doing some work and had the dike closed, and so we couldn't do any cutting in July.
I have a question. I was just wondering what you do with the roots. Like, is this basically pruning the knotweed, or are you actually digging up the roots as well?
No, we're not actually digging up the roots. Unfortunately, because it's the rhizome grows up to 25 feet, and every piece that breaks off can grow a new plant, and it's on a dike. They frown upon us digging up the dike. So no, we just cut it off at the ground, and we just cut it multiple times, and we've had quite a bit of effect on the south side. On the north side, there's more in smaller patches going out, and we've some of the places we've planted for shade, and unfortunately, or fortunately, the plants are much smaller, and it's much harder to work on. But a lot of the areas are under control, and now the last 2 or 3 years have been intermittent, as I said, and therefore it's gaining a little bit of a gain on us. So we hope to get back at it 4 times a year.
Nice.
All right. Any other questions? Right. Well, thank you very much, David. That was great.
Yep.
And also, as Dave said, encourage people to come out on October 1st. So, and that'll be on the BMN website, as I imagine it's in the newsletter as well.
Yes, it's in the newsletter as well.
Great. And Ron, are you
Yep.
ready to go? Sure.
I'm ready to go.
So we'll give Ron, if you're already a co-host, then you can screen share.
Yeah. I've just got a couple of pictures I'd like to show you, and then we'll get out of the screen share and talk about it. Shoot. I wanted to talk about this phone app, Merlin. Now, it's entirely possible that I'm the last one in town to find out about this, but the fact is that I haven't heard much about it. There's a couple of reasons why I wanted to bring it up, but briefly, what it is an app on your phone that listens for bird calls, and then identifies the bird and shows you a picture. And this has been a very interesting experience for me. Okay, I'm going to get out of this so we can just talk to you. So, like I say, I'm late coming to this. One of the reasons that I'm bringing it up is that it is so much fun that, just in case there was anybody left out there who doesn't know about it, they should. You download it from the internet onto your phone. It's very simple to do, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. This is literally the only app that I have on my phone. But I'm finding I go riding my bike on the dike, and every place I stop, I come up with different birds. And I'm finding birds right in my own yard that I never see. But things like Western tanager, the spectacular bird. I've never seen one here, but every time I turn this app on behind my house, it's there, including a bunch of other things. I've come up with some idiosyncrasies. It sometimes makes a mistake. It's told me that it's hearing Baltimore Oriole at one point, and which obviously is an eastern bird. But then it came up with Bullock's Oriole, which I also initially rejected. But when Bullock's Oriole came up 2 more times, I started looking at it seriously. So I checked the range map online, and sure enough, we do have a very small area around the Lower Mainland that where the Bullock's Oriole hangs out. Other interesting aspects of it is that it's so sensitive, it hears bird calls that I can't hear. But on the other hand, it ignores very loud bird calls that I can clearly hear. So I don't know what that's about. And I was up to Pink Mountain this summer, and Merlin knows nothing about the northern birds at all. I don't think I found a single identification from up there. But anyway, and the other thing I tried, I bought a phone mount for the handlebars of my bike. I was hoping I could keep it running and listening for birds as I went along, but that doesn't work either. The phone has to be stationary in order to work. But as an inexperienced birder, I've learned a lot about the birds that are in this area, and it's just really neat to stop and see what birds are in your immediate vicinity. You know, the other reason I wanted to bring it up with all of you is that I think this app has capabilities that I'm not utilizing. And I'm just wondering if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions or ideas for using this app.
Cleon's got something.
Oh, I wanted to say how much fun I had doing it with my 8-year-old granddaughter. We were seeing all sorts of birds. Her eyes are way quicker than mine. And there was such a sense of joy of doing it together and using iNaturalist as well. So she ended up taking pictures. We made placemats. She labeled them with all the different plant species, and was doing it with birds. So it's a great grandparenting tool. Yeah. And I know that, I think Kathy, you went out to see a group of the principal at the school today. I think that's a role that we can play, is let them know the tools that are out there to work with the kids. And it's not necessarily just identifying it, it's the joy of teaching others how they can do it themselves. And I think the apps are good with that.
Yeah. How many of you are actually using this?
I am.
So am I. And sometimes people stop and look at me holding my phone up, and I tell them what I'm doing, so I don't look like a complete fool.
Well, and also there are other apps as well, right? Not just Merlin. So
I use it in conjunction with eBird. I identify the birds and then I report them on eBird. And that is another great resource. It's for all the birds all over the world. Merlin, I think you can download different packs depending on where you are.
So maybe there's something for the north then.
No, there isn't, but there's only two. One is, we're in the northern one, that's the one I'm using. The other one is further south. I didn't come across anything for further north than we are. But are you accepting Merlin's identification without actually seeing the bird?
No, I'm not. I have to see the bird.
Yeah.
I use another app called iBird Plus. It's an old app, but and I paid for it. So I use it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Merlin is free. So, even if you're not a serious birder, it's just a fun thing to use.
Yeah, if I might add in my 2 cents worth here. Merlin is very good, but one has to be cognizant of what you should be hearing and what you should be seeing. Because I do use Merlin quite a bit, and for the most part, it is correct. But if you sit, knowing what you should be in the area is very important, because it does throw stuff off that, like oftentimes it'll say, I just heard a barred owl when I know I didn't hear one. Because and it's best used when there's no ambient other noise going on. Because if there's a lot of background noise, it tends not to pick up stuff. But it is an excellent app, but one has to use it with a bit of knowledge on what you should be hearing. And if it throws off, a chestnut-sided warbler, then you better find it, because chances are, yes, there was one in Pitt Meadows this year, but chances are that's not what it heard. But anytime I get one that I don't believe Merlin, then I have to find it first. But and I never use the visual one, because that makes more mistakes than, from what I've heard, because I don't really need to use it personally, but the visual one is to me is not really viable.
Well, I've been going back to the computer and checking range maps whenever I come up with something that's completely new to me. And yeah, that's both interesting and educational, going that route too. Because you come back with this record on the phone, and so it's easy to go back and refer to it when you're looking up information back home at your computer.
And the best thing, if you're looking for ranges, what you should do is the bird you think you've heard, or it's Merlin settage, or go on to eBird. Like eBird costs you nothing either. And you can do searches on eBird for specific species. And if you narrow it right down to the lower mainland, it'll tell you, if you ask it, how many of this species has been seen right now this month in this area. It'll pinpoint all of the records that have been done. And of course, you've got one that hasn't been seen, this year, then chances are that's not what it was.
Yeah.
I've tried BirdNet, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And it will actually say best guess, or we're certain it's this. And then you can actually it leads you to a link where you can read information about the bird and hear a sample, so you can see if it matches what you've just listened to. So it's not always correct, but it's a place to start.
I believe it also reports back this, you have the option of reporting back your sighting to, I guess it's Cornell University that's hosting that one.
Mm-hmm.
Simon, while you were saying it, we were talking about this on the hike that we had on Tuesday night, and I don't know if you want to say this, Simon, but there was something interesting that you had where you had someone that tried to mimic a bird on the.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that was BirdNet. When I first got the app, I decided to give it my best impression of a crow. And it came back and it said most probable species, Homo sapiens, almost certain.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. And yes, it was mentioned, that's the other thing that Merlin will do is let you play back the call. And they even have a variety of calls, flying calls, perching calls. Yeah. Well, anyway,
Ron, we use it a lot on our colony farm bird surveys. I don't have it on my phone because my phone's too old. I can't load it on there. And also I don't have data. So those are two requirements that you need a pretty modern phone. And you need to have a data plan. But often, we'll hear a bird, we think we know what it is, and Merlin can confirm it. So we find it a very useful tool, but occasionally it does just give a bizarre result, which, can't be right. But, it's a tool, really, really handy and fun, as you say.
yeah. But it can be incredibly frustrating. There's one area on the dike, one particular hedgerow along the field where I was regularly hearing a very loud call, and it was there, the same call, the same birds were there for weeks. And I'm literally within feet of wherever this bird is shouting from, and Merlin's ignoring it. So I never did find out what that bird was. Maybe next year.
Maybe try going further away.
Yeah, that's right. It does seem to do better with the faint calls than it does the louder ones.
Lee, if you
Might
got a
not have been
question?
a bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I'd like to add with Merlin, I used it at the cabin. I've had it for a couple of years, but I hardly ever use it. But I used it at the cabin in May, a lot of birds migrating. And it's really wonderful. Plus, it's just lots of fun. But one thing I noticed is, well, there's no cell service at the cabin, no internet. So Merlin didn't know where I was. So when Merlin doesn't know where you are, it just gives you all kinds of nonsense. Just picks things out of the, out of its memory or whatever. But you can tweak it and sort of tell it where you are, like, British Columbia. And then it'll narrow down and start giving you the right stuff. And just as an aside, when I was at the cabin, there were, I'm not an expert birder, but I'm not a beginner either. I've been birding in this place for 30 years since I bought the property. And within just a couple of days, Merlin found 4 species that I didn't know were there. They're probably always there. I just didn't identify them out of all the other birds that were there.
Yeah.
One was a magnolia warbler. They look a lot like or yellow at first glance. And the other one was American redstart, and then 2 others. Veery. One was a veery. I had heard the veery's call, but I just assumed it was an odd sounding swains and thrushes call. It wasn't a song, it was a call. And one other one. So it was just really lots of fun and quite accurate when it knew where I was.
And when Lee's talking about the cabin, that's in the Kootenays.
Yes, Kootenays.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all I've got. Thanks for the contributions, everybody. It's given me a few more things to try. And I'm just wondering if those glitches that I got, like the Baltimore Oriole, if that had something to do with the internet or the phone.
Not getting cell service.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain it would be because Merlin didn't know where you were, at least temporarily.
Yeah, that could well be. And yet we came up with the Bullocks Oriole immediately after the Baltimore Oriole. So, and that was pretty specific.
If you go to the 3 bars in the upper left and you go down to bird packs, and it lists installed, recommended, and all. And if you hit all, there's tons of bird packs for all over the
Oh.
world.
Oh,
Recommended is Canada West and US and Canada Continental. And
okay, those are the
I have-
two I looked at.
yeah. But all it's got Atlantic, Australia, Bolivia, Europe, Ghana, all sorts of places.
Interesting.
It has an excellent one for Argentina. I
Yes,
didn't have it loaded when I was in Argentina. This was 6, 7 years ago now. But later, when I was preparing a presentation on Argentina birding, I did download that pack and use it to confirm a lot of identifications. It was really wonderful, even just sitting here in my studio.
Does anybody know if there's a pack for Ecuador? Because that's where my next trip is going to be.
well, you can go to the list and
Yeah, I will. I just wondered if you happen to.
yeah, it says Ecuador all and Ecuador Amazon and Ecuador Galapagos, Ecuador North, Ecuador South.
Holy cow. Wow.
So you have a lot of, it tells you how many megabytes each pack is.
Sounds like another presentation run.
Ecuador North is 1.23 gigabytes. So you need a large phone.
Yeah, right. How do you mean another presentation?
When you come back from Ecuador.
Oh, well, I've already been, and I have, as soon as we get back to live meetings, I've got a program and I'm looking forward to showing you. My last trip before COVID shut us all down was to the Pantanal in Brazil. And then at the end of that trip, we had just a few days in Ecuador. I've got a terrific set of pictures from the Pantanal, but I found that I didn't have enough pictures from Ecuador to make a slideshow. So that's why I have to go back to get more Ecuador birds. But I would like to show you the Pantanal pictures because that was an absolutely fabulous trip for birds. But I want to do that live.
Okay.
I want the pictures to be on the big screen.
Right.
Okay, we'll save it.
Yeah, you're on.
We'll book you for 2025.
Yeah, right. You might have to prop me up in the front of the room, but I'm getting pretty old. But yeah, let's hope I can get back down there though before I'm too fragile to travel anymore. I was looking for on the CDC website today, and almost every developed country in the world is still at the next to highest level of warning for COVID, including Canada. And interestingly, some of the safest places are in Africa, some of the smaller countries in Africa. And China is the lowest of all. So I'm still afraid to start traveling again.
Okay, well, yeah, no problem. Okay, so we should move on to our next presenter. And thanks very much, Ron. That was very interesting and something that I haven't dabbled in. So it's maybe one day when I get a smartphone, I'll have a whole bunch of apps to put on. So, so our next presenter is Jeff Rudd. And Jeff Rudd will be talking about the mysteries and other sightings along the Coquitlam River. Oh, Jeff's already going at it. Jeff, we can't hear you if you're talking. Jeff, are you muted?
There we are. Yeah.
There you go.
I had to unshare to get my microphone back on. So
Right.
Here we are. There we go. Okay. So this is basically just a glorified wildlife sightings. So anyhow, I spent a lot of time walking along the Coquitlam River, and I often find small objects which are sort of puzzling, curious, as sort of a mystery object. And so, and this is an example. So these things are, they're quite small, as you can tell by the scale. They're hemispherical. The diameter varies from about 2 millimeters to 7 millimeters. They're a whitish color, they're hard, and they basically look like a mushroom with no stem. And the context of where I find these things is important. They're almost always found, well, they're always found with pieces of crayfish and among what are barred owl pellets or possibly other animal scat. They're definitely found in barred owl pellets and possibly in other animals. And I've seen barred owls eating crayfish, and crayfish make a great crunching sound. So the question is, so what are these little white objects? And so I've asked a few people and nobody seemed to know, and I did a Google search and couldn't find it. But recently I did a revised Google search and it gave the answer. So proving that you have to use the right search terms when you're doing a Google search. But before I tell everybody what these things are, I'm curious to know if anybody knows what they are.
Well, when you show the first picture, it actually looked like half of a snowberry.
Well, they're very hard. They're calcium.
Okay.
Calcium
Okay.
carbonate.
Interesting.
And any takers?
Some kind of geode. Oh.
They turn out they're part of a crayfish.
Ah.
And there's something called a crayfish gastrolith. So gastro meaning stomach and lith meaning stone. And so what happens is crayfish have an external or an exoskeleton, which they need to shed every time as they grow. They shed basically every time they go about 2 to 4 millimeters. So in their first year of their life, they can molt as many as 14 times, which is hard to imagine. It's sort of more than once a month. And as they get bigger, the number of molts decreases. So typically 5 or 6 in the second year, 3 molts in the third year, and 1 or 2 in the fourth year. And so when they have to produce a new exoskeleton, it takes a lot of calcium to do that. And it's hard to find calcium in the freshwater environment that the crayfish live in. So what they do is they actually absorb the calcium from their exoskeleton. They store it in these gastroliths, and then once they've shed their exoskeleton, they use the stored calcium in the gastrolith to produce a new exoskeleton after molting, which
Wow.
I find absolutely incredible.
Mm.
And so,
So what do they look like when they don't have their exoskeleton?
well, they're hard to see because they tend to hide under rocks until they're quite vulnerable when they don't have their exoskeleton.
That's X-rated.
That's a voice from the. Yeah.
Where
So
are
they're-
these things
they're-
stored?
What's that?
Where are these things stored in their body?
They're in their stomach, is my understanding.
See them cut it in
Right.
half. We see that shot again.
So you mean this one?
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So it's kind of a reserve, a holding tank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when they've completed their molt, presumably the gastrolith wouldn't have any calcium, and then when they're getting close to a molt, they'll store the calcium in the gastrolith.
Fascinating. Good detective work, Jeff. Fascinating.
Well, the internet is incredible.
Yeah. So Jeff, what size would these things be? And
You had a
Anywhere from 2 to 7 millimeters in diameter. So this one is about 3 or 4 millimeters, and this one's about 7 millimeters.
so I'm still confused. So how do they use the calcium stored in that to create an exoskeleton on their body?
Well, they it's in some manner which is unclear. They will actually
dissolve it,
the
I guess.
calcium. Yeah, just basically dissolve it in the bloodstream and then deposit it in the gastroliths. And then when it comes time to make a new exoskeleton, they can withdraw the calcium from the gastrolith and use that to make the new exoskeleton.
That's just weird.
It seems to me there's
That's
a
a technical
medical
term.
application here.
Weird.
It's very sensible.
So why are these gastroliths lying about? Why haven't they been used? Because
Because the crayfish has been eaten by either a barred owl or some other creature. And-
Okay.
They don't want it.
chance
so-
to remake one.
Yeah, exactly. So when the barred owl forks up its the crayfish bits, the gastroliths come with it.
I'm thinking, Jeff, there's a market here for calcium pills or something out of these things.
I've got at least 10 of these things in the house, so.
If somebody could figure out how the crayfish reabsorbs the calcium,
Yeah.
Yeah.
could that not be used to remove gallstones or something like this?
Or for osteoporosis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe. So anybody with osteoporosis is welcome to try a gastrolith there.
I guess, you know, humans, we have otoliths in our ears. Again, presumably little pebbles of calcium for determining, you know, gravitation and which way we're oriented. So it's not totally brand new having stones inside of bodies.
That are useful.
Yeah, but really,
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, and then I've just got a few sort of videos and photos from along the river. So continuing on the crayfish theme. So one day I was down at the storm drain by my place, and there was a crow picking at something about 20 feet away, and the crow flew off as I approached. So I went down to look at what it was, and it was this crayfish here. And I will now switch to a video. I hope this works. Let's see if it works here.
You probably have to stop sharing. You probably have to stop sharing and reshare the video.
Oh, okay. Let me just let's see. Let me go back to here. Let's see. Darn.
We'll try stop sharing, Jeff.
Yeah, okay, will do. Let's see now, how do I do that?
Just take your cursor up to the top of the screen, and then it should say.
Oh, there it is. Stop share. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And when you go into share, you might have to click on the video button.
Okay, so let's see. Let me just share screen. Okay, and we'll do that share. Okay, let's try that. That's the wrong one. Sorry about that. Let's see.
Make sure
we actually tried this the other night and it worked. But let me just. Okay, well, here we go. Okay, video. Can you see the crayfish here?
Yeah, in slow motion.
No, that's full speed.
Oh, wow.
They don't move very quickly.
Jeff, how big are these crayfish? I've never seen one.
So they're probably about 3 or 4 inches long, the body, and so they look like mini lobsters.
Yes.
And they blow bubbles.
Well, what happened was, now let me just click here. Do you see that picture, or what are you seeing now?
Stopped video.
Okay, so let me just.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to switch to the other. Okay, so this is what the.
Whoa, this foam is very big.
Yeah, so it was producing this foam. I have no idea sort of what was going on. The crow had actually picked off part of the crayfish. the nose cone of the crayfish here. Let's see, it's just, okay, let's go to there. There we are. So this is the nose of the crayfish. It's got these two antennae. The crow had pulled that off, and the crayfish was obviously highly stressed, and so was blowing these bubbles. I don't know, I don't know what the mechanism is, but anyhow, so I picked up the crayfish and tucked it under a little overhang, and hoping that it would, they molt their exoskeleton, so presumably it could regrow the nose cone here. And the next day when I checked, it was gone. The crayfish had left, so I have to assume that it was it lived to fight another day.
That looks like its head.
Yeah, well, it is its head. Yeah, so okay, so let's see if we can see the next video here. I might have to stop sharing here. As I say, we did practice this the other night, and it worked. So I will now I will share again here. So these are just some sort of things we see down by the river. This is this fellow was swimming up the river, and
Nice.
and then this was the same general area. And the thing about this one, listen to the sound that you hear. There's this very strange chirping sound, which I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
Is that an otter?
It's a river otter. And then there are two more river otters swimming up.
So Jeff, maybe let people know approximately on the river whereabouts this is.
So this is just off Dunkirk in New Horizons. So between just south of the David Avenue Bridge. Okay.
Were those little ones young of this one that was on the shore, do you think?
Well, I wasn't sure if the one on the shore was the youngster or the parent. Because the other two might have been the parents, and the little guy, the other one, the one that was making the noises, might have been the youngster. I don't know.
Can you show it again? I'd like to see it. Good eye that you could see those little ones, because it just bobbing. It's just the heads bobbing in the water. Like, wow.
You think it was calling to the other ones?
That's what I think.
It could be. It certainly looked that way. And one of the things that puzzles me about these two is that they're going up the fastest water.
Right. They want the challenge. But are you sure that's coming from the otters, that clicking sound?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no question about it. It'd be interesting to see what the Merlin app made of that one. But, so now we have to apologize for this, but we'll have to go back to, I'll have to switch the screen around a bit here. So, and let's see, I can just go to this one. Okay, so this is the last sequence of photos and videos. This is a dipper. And so over the years, I found a few dipper nests along the river. And last year, came across this dipper nest here. This is a dipper nest here. So I'm standing on the shore of the river, and that's about 15 feet off the shore on this large boulder. This is up the upper river, just below the Grist hatchery. So reasonably accessible, but you have to do a little bit of work to get there. And that's a close up of the nest. The nest is about the size of a soccer ball. Sometimes they're in exposed positions like this. Often they'll be hidden behind a waterfall or on the bank of a river. So sometimes often they're a challenge to find, but in this case it was fairly straightforward. And there were 3 chicks this year, and there are 2 of them. So I will switch now back to the video, and let me do that. Let's see. And the video is here.
How did you clue in that was a nest?
I've seen them before.
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't get a pile of stuff or moss and sticks on a rock like that. So
Yeah, and
but Jeff is an incredible spotter of dipper nests, and what was the other thing that I'm trying to think? Pipes
Well,
in the river.
we had a kingfisher nest last year
Oh wow.
as well. So
Hummingbird nests.
Hummingbird nests. That's the other one
Yeah.
that Jeff finds all the time. He has an eye for it.
so here's this is a video of the nest.
Mhm.
So that's
Right.
really zoomed in, and this is all handheld video. So the image stabilization in these cameras is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's fabulous. That's so well done. Well,
Jeff, are you using a video camera or is this your phone?
This is a point and shoot Canon,
Yeah,
just a little handheld thing, and it has a 40 times zoom, which is just phenomenal. But and as I say, the image stabilization is incredible because these are all handheld, and that's zoomed right in. So and then here's another shot of the chicks in the nest.
Oh yeah. You can already see the eyes with the double eyelid.
here comes Mum.
Wow. Feed me.
And you wonder when they open up their mouth, it's like a bright orange sort of color. If that's something to make it easier for the parents to find.
Yeah, certainly the size of the beak and the thick edges on the edge of the beak are real, seem to be real triggers for getting the parents to feed them, to get a target to put the food in. So that was on May 31st, and the next day the first chick left the nest. And one of the problems with doing this kind of stuff is you often come in halfway through the action. So this is the first, I believe, the first time the first chick left the nest. So there's just a few sightings along the river.
Great.
yeah, that's great, Jeff.
Great spotting. You're awesome.
Well done, Jeff.
Yeah, amazing.
bravo. That was very exciting to me.
Questions for Jeff?
Seen beavers that high up?
I've never seen a beaver that high up the river. So that the farthest up is probably about Upper Coquitlam River Park, where the airfield is. But never seen anyone any higher than that.
Oh, that's pretty high.
All right. So thanks very much again, Jeff. That was fabulous. And Victoria, do you want to
Okay.
show yours?
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I cannot get this to, guess I'll just do slideshow from here.
If you hit.
All right, I usually
F5.
use the keys. Yeah, I tried F5 and it wasn't working for some reason.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah,
weird.
nothing is going as normal tonight. So Jeff's kind of a hard act to follow. But anyway, I thought I'd share something that I learned this summer. And what I'm going to show you is a number of caterpillars that I noticed just growing on some fennel in the garden, just over the course of, I don't know, 3 or 4 days in early August. So this is one of them. Pretty odd looking little fellow. I love these little tufty things on him. Like if you had to design a caterpillar, I don't know whether you'd come up with something like that. It's pretty neat. A bit fuzzy, this photo, but anyway. And this is another one. Gorgeous little thing. Again, with these little pointy, looks like armor on it.
How big do you think these are in real life?
In real life, they're about, sorry, I have to do in inches, Kathy, about 1.5 inches.
Okay, I can translate that.
Yeah.
That's 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
And this is another one, all on the fennel. And this one.
Have you any idea what the caterpillar will turn into? Is a moth or a butterfly or?
That's the point of the story, Ron.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Good going. That's all right. And then this one doesn't have the little tufty things on. So I put these photos on iNaturalist, as one would, thinking, oh, the experts are going to be so impressed with me in my garden, this huge diversity of butterflies and insects. Well, the surprise to me was that these are all caterpillars of the same butterfly. They're all caterpillars of the Anis swallowtail butterfly. So I didn't know this. This particular butterfly has 5, they're called instars or stages. And just like the crayfish that Jeff just showed, as it grows, it has to shed its skin. But in the case of this, maybe all swallowtails, I don't know, but this Anis swallowtail, every time a caterpillar sheds its skin and emerges again, it's a different color, obviously a little bit bigger because it molts as it grows, but the pattern is totally different. And so there's 5 different stages, instars, of the Anis swallowtail. That black one I showed you is actually one of the first ones, the first one I showed you. And it's, from what I read, it's supposed to, what people think, it kind of looks like bird droppings because these guys, all of these guys got eaten by birds, by the way. I don't think any of them survived. The birds just came in and ate them all. But that kind of looked like a bird dropping in the fennel. And then they, they're somewhat disguised in there, but they're still pretty easy to see.
How many did you have? Like, was your fennel going to survive this?
I have a lot of fennel.
Oh.
Not by design, just by default, actually. Once you have a bit of fennel, you have a lot of fennel. I don't know, there may be, maybe we saw about a dozen in those 4 or 5 days.
Do you believe that you saw an example of one of each of the 5 instars?
Possibly. I haven't done really extensive Googling to figure out which is which. All I know is they start out with that black caterpillar with the white kind of saddle in the middle, and they get greener towards the 5th instar there. And then they form the chrysalis.
Very cool.
So, yeah, so I didn't know that. And then I was looking out the window once and I saw a butterfly in the fennels and went dashing out with the camera. Not a great photo. But you can see that this butterfly, its abdomen is twisted around here, and she's depositing eggs in the fennel. And this is what the eggs look like. So there's one there.
Good.
There's another one down here, and then there's something under there's another one up here, but unfortunately it's covered by something on my screen. But they just, I don't know, the size of a fairly large pinhead, I suppose. And I marked the branch where these particular eggs are, just a little twist tie. But again, I think they were eaten by birds too. The birds were, I'm not feeding birds this summer, but the birds are in there and this is what they're eating, I think. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I just wanted to finish with just, for those of you who don't know, that Annis swallowtail, they're kind of similar to the more common Western tiger swallowtail. But when you look at them side by side, the patterns are totally different. So the Western tiger swallowtail, it's more yellow than black. And this is more, I don't know, I would say it's more black than yellow. And there's also a size difference. So this is about 2 inches across. Sorry for the inches bit. And this is, I don't know, 3.5 to, this is a big butterfly. This is 3.5 inches, maybe even 4 inches. So that was something I learned this summer, just in my backyard.
Does the Annis swallowtail butterfly specifically target fennel?
Members of the carrot family.
Okay.
Yeah, but and it gets its name, like, fennel tastes like anise, licorice.
Yes.
So the common name comes from that. But I don't know what the native plants would be. I mean, I don't think, there wasn't fennel here thousands of years ago. But carrot, parsley, plants in that family, and very specific larval food for the Annis swallowtail. The Western tiger swallowtail, not so specific. It's willow and I don't know.
Would it be possible to bring a chunk of fennel in the house with one of the caterpillars on it?
Good idea.
Should have done it. Should have done it. Yes. Yeah.
Next year.
Next summer. Yeah. So around August 9th, that was the peak, which I'll remember for next year.
Yeah, put it in the calendar.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I'm glad you shared this. I had no idea this was happening in our neighborhood.
It's pretty cool.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I noticed that you have the pictures from iNaturalist. Does iNaturalist allow you to download the images?
Well, I didn't ask them.
Okay.
But there is credit being given.
At least, yes. No.
These are educational purposes. So
Yes.
I'd say you're fine. We're not
Yes.
paying. You're not making money.
Yeah.
That
No,
was
I lift, these are not my photos of the butterflies, obviously.
The ones of the caterpillars are your photos.
They
right?
are, yes.
Yeah.
This is clearly my photo.
That looks more like one of Jim's photos.
Or maybe not so clearly.
Yeah, not so clearly. I know. Well, I think, some of them aren't bad photos. It's with a macro lens, but I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think so.
I like this one.
great.
The colors are amazing.
Yeah, they are. And this is a little web up in there that something emerged from. I was following that one too. Yeah, there was a great quote I came across over the course of the summer, because I spent a lot of time just in the backyard this past summer. And it was, I went traveling this summer. I made it almost halfway across my backyard.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
You know,
maybe Victoria, we could have a butterfly walk in your garden next August 9th.
Yes, I've got all these marvelous caterpillars. And I thought I was going to have all these marvelous butterflies, but well, I've learned something.
You fed the birds.
Yes.
They
sure
do
did.
look juicy.
Yes. Oh, you can imagine. Yeah.
if you were an Australian Aborigine, you'd go nuts over one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will stop the share, I guess.
Sure.
It's really interesting to me that these butterflies have adapted to garden plants. We have a native plant called Daucus carota, which is obviously a carrot, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that was the plant that this butterfly evolved with.
Interesting. So do you know a common name for that?
I don't. That's all I can remember. I'm sorry.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Don't worry.
And I don't even think that one occurs on the coast. So I suspect, if I'm remembering right, it's an interior plant. But because the butterfly has been able to use garden plants, I suspect that the range of the butterfly has been extended because of that.
Interesting point. Interesting.
Yeah. None of these things happen by accident. There's very specific connections. And you did answer it by saying that the butterflies will use members of the carrot family, but I was going to ask how come this native butterfly is using a garden, an introduced plant as a food plant.
Well,
Go
I was
ahead.
going to say they'll use what's there, or sometimes maybe their natural plant or whatever is no longer around with the change in the forest or whatever the case might be.
But they're usually very, very specific.
Yep.
I don't know if I know I have not told you guys this, but I found that Pink Mountain is a butterfly hotspot for all of Canada. And that is directly related to the fact that there is almost every flowering plant on Pink Mountain that occurs across the Canadian Arctic. So all the tundra plants are all in one place. So there's that direct relationship between the variety of plants and the variety of butterflies.
For the people that haven't seen Ron's presentation on Pink Mountain, that are new members, Pink Mountain is well north of Prince George.
Yes. It's 150 kilometers north of Fort St. John. So, and it's all tundra on the summit.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting with these things that happen in our yards or in the forest that, may only happen for a few hours per year or a few days or a few weeks. So it's always being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I've never seen them before, but never thought to look.
Right.
And I don't think they were successful. So maybe they're not very successful on fennel. Maybe on the native plant, they can hide better from the birds.
Yeah, but it's also having many caterpillars and only some survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That idea about bringing the caterpillars into the house, butterflies are really easy to raise that way. The butterfly farms raise all their own butterflies. Well, you could increase your butterfly population by bringing them in, protecting them until they emerge from the chrysalis, and then releasing them back into the yard.
But I'm retired, Ron. I don't have time.
Well, I don't think you'd have to do very much. Just bring them in, put them in some sort of a cage, and then release them.
Yeah. Well, Jeff would do it in an instant.
There you go.
Maybe not at Susan's place.
You invite them over.
Yeah, I'll do it at my place.
Yeah.
That's right.
We'll swing by on August 9th in the summer and pinch. some
Excellent. We'll
That's
see.
right. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, one thing, one little thing, your video of the black bear when it gets on the shore, it really showed the gait of the black bear and
yeah.
the waddle.
Yeah.
Because the black bear has the two hind legs are longer
Mhm.
than the front leg.
Right.
And also so they're moving both legs on one side and the rear leg oversteps where the front paw landed. And so that's that odd gait, and you could really see it clearly
It was a good
from the
video,
side.
yeah.
It was
Yeah,
a really
yeah.
good video of that, of
Interesting.
why they waddle,
Yeah.
waddle
The
along
waddling
like that.
black bear.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing about black bears is if they stand on their hind legs, they almost look like, you know, a kid wearing skateboard shorts.
Yeah.
With the little pudgy legs. And
Yeah.
Can I ask a general question? Victoria, are you finished with your
I
presentation?
am. Yes, go ahead.
Do any of you serious birders have any ideas about how many broods a spotted towhee might raise in a season? Because I have been seeing young birds continuously right through the summer appearing at my feeder. And it seems pretty incredible to me.
We've got Larry here. Larry, do you want to weigh in here?
I have no idea.
Larry doesn't look for spotted toys. He looks for much rarer species.
Okay, now
Well,
that Larry,
Not so much that, but they make, because the weather's been good, that they only have more than one batch if they have the conditions to feed them. So if the
Yeah,
weather's been good and the food has been good, they may get a couple of batches off in a year.
yeah.
I would say 2 or 3.
Mhm.
2 for sure. I mean, there's a new lot out right now here.
Interesting. So it's all related to food availability. That makes sense.
Well, just like bears and cubs, you know, that if the food is good and that they'll have more cubs. So
Yeah,
how nature survives.
interesting. Thank you.
Just as a FYI, we had a bunch of bear scat in one of our gardens in our very small backyard today. It's probably been there a couple of days, I guess. We saw a black bear at the back of our place, which is Carnoustie Golf Course. So yeah, he was probably a juvenile bear. Maybe he wasn't huge, but I'm suspecting he was probably the owner of the scat in our garden.
Are you in Coquitlam or?
Port Coquitlam, just by Carnoustie Golf Course.
So in behind sort of Costco Dominion kind of area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rarely see bears anymore. Used to have them regularly, but Coquitlam has killed them all. I wish we could do something about that, but the Coquitlam politicians find it a lot easier to kill the bears than it is to force their residents, their voters, to keep their garbage inside.
Ron, sorry, I have to take exception to that. We do the tracking with Tri-City Bear Aware, and Coquitlam is a bear smart community. So it's, first of all, the municipality never kills bears. That's left up to the province. And because the Coquitlam does have bear smart status, your statistics on bear mortality has gone way down. Way down, and that's due to enforcement of the bylaws. So they have enforcement blitzes, and they regularly go through the neighborhoods and look for bylaw infractions, and they raised the the fines. So you get one warning and then you get a $500 ticket. And after that, you get a $1,000 ticket. So, and they also did quite a bit of data, and they found that there are some repeat offenders. So the first warnings weren't working for some people, but one $500 ticket resulted in compliance with the bylaws. And so the municipality that's having more problems with bears, certainly in the last 2 years, is Port Coquitlam, because they aren't pursuing Bear Smart status with the province. And
We are.
and Port Moody is having statistically way less bear mortality. They have some mortality up around Anmore and Belcarra. And that's, you know, that's a different set of reasons up there that they're having some problems with. But Coquitlam is actually doing a really good job locally, regionally, with enforcement of the bylaws and reducing the mortality rates.
That's really interesting, but the reason that I'm saying that is that I've come across two different sources that they quoted the same statistic, that in 2019, Coquitlam killed 24 bears. And coincidentally, the bears have disappeared, literally disappeared from my area, and I'm right on the border. So you say they have these blitzes, but how often do they do that?
Oh, they do it quite regularly, and they make announcements before they do it. And they do the same thing in Port Moody, where they do blitzes early in the morning or late in the evening. So yeah, I don't know. The statistics are those statistics for 2019 are inaccurate. In fact, that might be a statistic for the whole for one whole region, including a number of different municipalities, but that's not an accurate statistic for Coquitlam.
This came from the North Shore Bear Aware.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
They're not reliable.
No, it's not reliable.
Well, what's happened to the bears then? Where have they disappeared to?
One thing, Ron, that I know is happening in Coquitlam is they've changed the way they pick up garbage and recycling. So what they have is they have areas in Coquitlam that predominantly see bears, and so they have garbage pickups earlier in the morning. And so that might be a simple thing that deters the bears from hanging around in those certain areas.
Yeah, and another thing on top of that, Ian, what they're doing is where sometimes because of the good tracking that's being done by both Coquitlam environmental technicians plus our Wild Safe BC rep, what they'll do is even midstream, if they have if there's a hot spot identified in the morning where let's see, how can I explain this? So say they have a schedule of pickup, and they say the scheduled pickup was, you know, sector A and then followed by sector B. So it's on a timeline. So if they find, if there's a report of the bears are accessing the garbage or getting into some cans in sector B, they'll switch the trucks over to sector B right away.
Right.
And then they'll pick up sector A later. So it's real-time monitoring also that they're doing. They're doing that both in Coquitlam and Port Moody, and it's a great deterrent. And also there's both municipalities now have a new bylaw where if you do have a home that is getting repeat infractions, the bylaw officer, so the municipal bylaw officer will come to the home and they'll say to the resident, look, you've received a $500 fine. So your next option is to either store your bins in a secure shed, which you will have to build, or in your garage, or you're going to get a $1,000 fine. So then that homeowner has those two options to work with. And invariably, the homeowner will decide then if they have a garage, they'll store the bins in the garage. If they have a carport, then they build a bear resistant or a bear proof shed. So those are other tools. There's a number of tools now that enable better enforcement for the bylaw officers in both Coquitlam and Port Moody, and it's working.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
it's coming along. They learn seasonally. They take all of the data each year, and then they look at where the hot spots were, where some improvements can be made, and then they scale that to the work plan for the following year. And those meetings for all of us are called the Northeast Sector bear meetings. They do both of these meetings in the spring and in the fall. So the police, the municipal environmental staff is there, WildSafe BC, and Conservation Officer Services there. The one group that is absent from that is the North Shore Black Bear Society.
They're not invited.
They're not invited.
Oh.
No.
The information they put out, Ron, is inaccurate.
Yeah.
And so they've been blacklisted by costs and other groups. But if it's a good sign, if you're seeing fewer bears, Bear Smart is working.
Yeah.
It's a very good indication.
Yeah.
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 You know, if there isn't the easy food for the bears,
yeah,
they're going to go elsewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. When I was seeing them, they were passing through my yard. I'm on a ravine, which they use as a highway, and so you're right. There's nothing for them in my yard. I got feeders, but they're out of reach now.
Yeah.
But I did used to see them several times every year, and that just hasn't happened for the last couple of years. But anyway, I hope that's the real reason that there's less garbage being left out.
Yeah. You know, if you want more information, there's a Facebook page called Tri-City Community Bear Aware, and that's the WildSafe BC rep is on there. They also list the warp sightings. So there's a reporting mechanism that's used in all the municipalities where you can track where the bear sightings, and there's different icons, they're different colors. So they indicate if it's just a bear sighting, if it's red, that's where the bears actually access garbage. So there's a different index for the sighting, and then from that's where they start doing the tracking and the enforcement. And so those graphs are regularly listed on Tri-City Community Bear Aware, and then along with there's notifications to the residents of those particular areas that they've got bear activity. And for people, especially this time of year, if they've got fruit trees, those are the big attractants this year. If they've left unpicked fruit or there's fruit on the ground, those are what the bears are getting into right now. And of course, right now we're doing successive bear aware pop-ups in the parks because the bears are going into hyperphagia. So from now until they get into their dens, they're going to need about 20,000 calories a day. So so now it becomes even more important for people to watch their fruit trees, watch the garbage, things like that. And yeah, so that's a good website. That's a good Facebook page.
Yeah.
To join, and then you can ask questions of the administrators on there, and then you can ask for probably what would be more accurate statistics on what's going on around in our area.
Interesting. Yes, I
Yeah.
definitely will. Thank you. Thank you for that. That is going to be very useful.
And back to the number of broods for the spotted tally. It says 1 to 3.
1 to 3. Oh.
Depending on the season.
Let's make it 2.
It's if it's a lot of food, they're going to have 3. If they don't have a lot of food, they're going to have 1.
Yeah.
And I got the information off allaboutbirds.org. It's put out by Cornell Lab, Cornell University. Great resource. You can find out all sorts of information about birds on there.
Cornell Labs.
Great. Thanks, David.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay,
I learned a lot from this evening, especially that last discussion about the bears. I didn't know that's what Bear Smart was all about. Super interesting.
Yeah, and just quickly, so what Bear Smart designation is a provincial designation. And so if a community decides that they want that, which Coquitlam was the first one in the Lower Mainland to do it, they did a long time ago. And so you hire a consultant, a bear expert, who comes in and does an assessment of your entire community. And then there's certain criteria that have to be met in order to satisfy the provincial requirements for Bear Smart status. So Port Moody is now we're just on the cusp of getting our Bear Smart status, and we had 29 criteria that had to be met. So there are things like around school grounds, removing fruit trees around school grounds or berry bushes, things like that. A lot of it is safety. There's some really interesting set of criteria that have to be met, and then there's continually monitored to see that that criteria is still being met, or if it needs to be updated, and it's so yeah. So Coquitlam was one of the first ones to.
Do you know about any serious attacks by bears on people?
No.
In Coquitlam?
Anywhere.
Well, there was one. I'm trying to think of how many years. There was one that was probably 15 to 20 years ago. A lady was in her garden in Westwood Plateau.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and there was a food conditioned bear along the Coquitlam River.
That's right, a 10-year-old.
The 10-year-old little girl who ran. She wasn't. Yeah. Well, anyway, that was. She was okay, but she needed to be hospitalized.
I've always been curious about why there is so much fear of bears. I mean, put on DeBoville Slough, there are so many people out there, and in the summer there are so many bears. So there's all of these continuous interactions, and I've never heard of a single even threat out there.
They do happen, but it's but I agree with you. For as when I do my safety talks for hiking and things like that, I now include people and dogs, simply because I think you're just as likely to be call it attacked or threatened by a dog, a human, or a wild animal, or more so even. So.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point.
Speaking to the bears at the DeBoville Slough, we didn't have any before the berry farmers moved in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah. In our presentation by Metro Vancouver about with the wildlife cameras with Minikata, they were saying it's extremely unusual the amount of bears that are in the Minikata area, sort of like per kilometer, that it's way over populated than the most areas that bears will ever live together.
Yeah.
And that's simply because of the food source, and they'll put up with each other because there's food source.
That was
I'm
a good
surprised that
presentation.
dairy farmers
Yeah.
haven't been killing them. They must lose a lot of their crop.
I thought they could buy insurance against crop loss and bears there.
Oh. Are electric fences not effective against bears?
They have electric fences there, but
They have electric fences, but it's called the right to farm legislation, so they can't be forced to use them. That's why they're not turned on.
Oh,
Yeah. No, there'd be,
can't be losing that much in the way of their crop then.
no.
Interesting. Wow.
so so we are about 15 minutes over our allotted time, but I noticed that majority of people have been sticking around, so I'm sure they're enjoying the extra time. But I think I should bring the meeting to a close. And thank everybody. Thank all the presenters tonight. That was fabulous, as Victoria said, and it's also been mentioned in the chat as well. Our next regular monthly meeting isn't until October 18th, and we'll have John Clegg as a presenter. And who knows, in between that time, we might have a show and share, but we don't have one booked at this point. So please check out the newsletter, the website. We have walks and hikes coming up and other things. So please regularly check the website. And thanks very much.
And we wanted to thank all of you for the newsletter. The newsletter is so good, and so it's really interesting. And so to whoever.
Catherine.
Catherine, yeah.
Yeah, yay.
Yay, Catherine.
And this month, Brian stepped. Oh, there's Catherine. And this month, Brian stepped in as the editor as well. So.
Oh,
Hey, Brian.
yay.
And Linda took this month off, but she'll be back.
I have to say that Linda chose very well. This just as a slight story, the BMN members have been exceptionally, and I mean exceptionally busy this past summer. They've done so many things, got involved in so many activities and initiatives, and done so much stuff that I was inundated with articles for the newsletter. It was going to be about 20 to 25 pages if I put everything in it. So we trimmed it down to 10 pages. About 3 or 4 articles have been put off to next month.
Right. Yeah.
So Linda can deal with that. Just thank you to everybody for sending in the articles. It was good and bad to have my inbox filled. Yeah.
So why don't we have a newsletter every 2 weeks?
Oh.
Ron, we can probably do it right now.
Ron, are you volunteering to be part of the new?
I see a volunteer in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sounds we got somebody else to put out a newsletter instead of Catherine. Catherine, you can do one a month, and Ron can do the other one.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim and Judy. It is absolutely a team effort, and we're happy to put it all together. Catherine does the final production and produces that beautiful PDF that I send out. So Catherine is a master.
No, it's hard to put together the content. I just play around the space. Thank you.
Very humble.
Very good job.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody, and have a good night. And if the executive wants to stick around to chat, they can. If not, have a great night, everybody.
Hey,
Bye.
thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.